All right, hello again. So in this video, we're going to go over background images. So I have some start files for you. I'm going to drag this folder called background images to the sidebar in brackets. And that's so that we can work a little quicker and have a live preview and things like that. So we're going to open this file called background images start. And then I'm going to click the preview button here. And hopefully that comes up. Yeah, so let me give you a little background on this file. So it's just a file with a bunch of text in it and different boxes. So each of the boxes is a div, and each of the divs has a class on it. So if you haven't seen class before, a class is a way to apply a set of styles to multiple elements if you want. We're actually only going to use each of these styles once, I think, but that's what it is. If you haven't seen it before, you probably have, but if you haven't, depending on when you see this video, that's what a class is. It allows you to store like a set of styles and then apply them by saying class equals test. So you have to, each of these boxes says class equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. on them. You don't have to number them like that either. It's just how I numbered them. So we're going to go use those as our content, and right now it looks like this. And actually have some information about the different background settings that you can use in the file, so you can see that as well. Hopefully that helps you a little bit. All right, so I'm going to go inside the style. I'm going to get rid of this sidebar here so I have a little more space. There we go. I'm going to go inside the styles, and the first box has a class of test1. So I put dot test1. The dot means it's a class that I'm selecting, and that should target that first box. So we've got our test1. So we're just going to have a height and a width of 200 for this one. So I'm going to say height of 200 pixels and a width of 200 pixels. So if you look over in your browser, if it's previewing in Chrome, then it should be about a 200 by 200 pixel box. So that's what we've done so far. I'm going to add a little border to most of these, just so you can see what's going on a little bit better. You don't have to, as far as like, doesn't matter if it works or not. It doesn't affect how the background image works, but it will let us see it a little better. So I'm going to say border 2 pixels dashed, and let's just make it black. So that is the border shorthand. If you haven't seen that before, it's a 2 pixel width on the border. It's a dash style, and it is a black color. So that gives us this lovely dashed thing. It's not pretty, right? But it's just so we can see what's going on. All right, so now to the background image thing. So the first one we're just going to do it the long way, and then we'll probably start using some of the shorthand border or background properties. All right, so the first one is background dash image. Makes sense, right? We're talking about background image. So I'm going to say background dash image, and you can see it's already selected for me, or I can arrow down to. I want to arrow down to URL. So it's background dash image URL, and it's got some parentheses. And I just hit that, and because brackets knows that there's an image inside of that folder, it's showing me 100x100 or 100 by 100 background.gif. So I just do that. And I'm going to hit the semicolon at the end of that. Now sometimes this won't refresh correctly, so I'm going to save this file. And then I'm going to go back over here and hit refresh, and now it shows up. If I go back to my folder with my images, here's the actual image. It is a 100 by 100 little weird red thing with cells of an alien creature of some kind. But it's 100 pixels high and 100 pixels wide, and that's going to be our background image, just so we can see how big things are and play with that. So not supposed to be pretty. It's not pretty. But it will let us see that. So since we have a 200 by 200 pixel box, and our image is 100 by 100, you can see there's 4 of them, right? 100, 200, 100, 200. So that's the normal behavior of a background image, is to tile or fill up the entire background of the element that it's in. So we're in this first box called test1, or has a class of test1. All right, so let's go ahead and do the next thing. So that's background image. The next one we're going to do is background position. So I'm going to say background dash, let's see if I can tab down to it. There it is, background position. And I'm just going to say 0, 0, and then a colon. So what did that do? It didn't really do anything. What I'm doing with that is the first number that I'm using is the X offset, and the second number I'm using is the Y offset. If I put in, we're going to try this again in a minute on the second example, but let's say I put 10 pixels here, and let's say I put 20 pixels there. So what happened was it moved the top left corner of the background image 10 pixels to the right because the first number is X. X is the horizontal axis. The second number says go down 20 pixels. So Y is the vertical axis. So positive numbers on X go to the right. I'm pointing with my finger, you guys can't see it. Pointing to the right. And positive numbers on the Y go down. So negative numbers go up on the Y, and negative numbers on the X go to the left. So we got pushed over by 10 and down by 20, and that's why the image starts here instead of in the top left. Pretty cool, right? So there's the first part about how you can position something. So I'm gonna put that, well, I'll leave it like that. Let's leave it like that for now and go ahead and go on. So I'm gonna go down to the next line and say background dash position. And on this one, I'm going to say, oh, I already did background position. I'm gonna do background repeat, sorry. You guys should have told me about that. Background repeat, and I wanna say no repeat. No repeat. And what does that mean? That means that it doesn't repeat. So by default, remember we said that it's going to repeat and fill up this box over here? But if you say no repeat, it does not repeat. It obeys the command. So that's how that works. You can also, you have other options there. If I delete this and go back, it'll give me the options. So what I did was I deleted back to the semicolon, and that makes that, and then put the semicolon back, or the colon back in, and I'll see the options. So your options are repeat or no repeat. Repeat is the default. Repeat X, repeat Y, round, and space. So I'll show you repeat X and repeat Y. So here's repeat X. That means it's going to repeat sideways, and repeat Y will only repeat vertically. So you can make it only go sideways, only go vertical, or not repeat, or repeat if you want. The round and the other one, I'm not going to get into that because I don't know if those are well supported at this point, but and not used a whole lot probably. But let's go back to no repeat. So I went back to no repeat. Let's go back to the next one and go background dash color. So you've probably seen background color before. Why are we putting background color? And again, we have a background image because that's what will show behind the image if the image does not cover the whole page or whole element. So I'm going to say, just make it CCC for like a gray. So we see that background color back here, and we see the image floats on top. So it's kind of like layers. The background image will kind of show up on top of the background color. Another reason to use a background color, even if we were filling this whole thing with a background image, is that's the color that will show up before the image downloads. So say if somebody has a slow connection, they would not see just white. They would see a color that kind of matches your background image, say. That might be a good thing to do. The other possibility is there are like 4 people on the internet supposedly that turn off their images all the way. So if they don't have any images turned on or visibility of images turned on, then they're going to see white, right? So you can at least say like, well, I want it to be kind of dark, so I'll have a dark gray or something like that. So there's reasons to use background color with background image. The last one we're going to do on this line is called background attachment. There's background attachment. So you have 4 possibilities there: fixed, inherit, local, or scroll. So the default is scroll, and I'm just going to show you the other one that people use quite a bit is fixed. Not a whole lot, but it's kind of an interesting one. So I'm going to say fixed here. You could try the other ones on your own if you want. But if I say background attachment fixed, what happens is, check this out. If I scroll the page, the background image does not scroll with the rest of the page. It's fixed to the browser window. It's not fixed to the content because the content is scrolling, but the image is not. So kind of weird, right? So it kind of makes this little window in your container that you can see the image through, but if that container scrolls off screen, you can't see it anymore. It is a little bit weird. And the other thing to notice, I don't know if you noticed that, but it kind of moved a little bit. It is now positioned, these numbers here are now positioned relative to the browser window and not the box. So it doesn't care about the box anymore, it only cares about the browser window. So now it's 10 pixels over from the browser window edge, right there's 10, and 20 from the top. It's not 20 from the box anymore and 20 and down 20 and over 10. So it's positioned now according to this whole viewport instead of the box. So if I put, let's put 0, 0 back in here that we had at the beginning here. Now you can see it's kind of off screen, or it's out of this box, right? Because it's up here in the corner and we can't see it. So it doesn't care about the box anymore as far as positioning goes. So let me undo that and I'll put it back. You see what I mean there. All right, I think that's it for the first one. So that's background image. That's how you specify an image. Position is how you move it around. We're going to play with these a little bit. Background repeat, we saw that one. Color, you've already know that one probably. And the background attachment is what is it attached to? Is it attached to the box or is it attached to the page? Most of the time, that's what that means. Most of the time it's going to be attached to the box and scroll with everything else. Okay, let's go down to the next one. I'm going to go down and put .test2. That's the second box as class. Could have used IDs on this too, but I used class for some reason. Again, I'm going to take the height and width at 200 pixels. Probably could have done that more efficiently, but you guys love to type, right? Let's see, 200 pixels. So it's 200 pixels again by 200 pixels. And we're going to add the border one time. Maybe we could copy and paste next time. It'd be a little smarter, but let's do 2 pixels. Dashed again. And black again. All right, so we've got our height and width and our border. Now we're going to do the background shorthand. So instead of us writing 5 different lines or more for this stuff, you can write it in the background shorthand. It's a little tricky. Let me show you a page on that from W3 Schools. So here is the background shorthand syntax for that. So you can do background, some of these we haven't talked about yet. You can do background color, then background image, then background position, then background size, which we haven't done, background repeat, background origin, background clip, background attachment. All that stuff can be in the same background property. There are a couple caveats with that, and sometimes you might see it where it says it needs to be in that order and some other things. So it's a little tricky. Another downside with using the background shorthand is if you leave some of these properties off, they might reset later. If I do a background using shorthand and I put a color on it, and then later I change one of these properties like background position, it might reset the color. So it can have some weird little ticks to it, but hopefully it'll be okay for us to use right now. I'm sure it will be. But it does save you quite a bit of typing, so go ahead and look that up if you have some issues with what happens when you change some of these or use some of these values or using the shorthand in general. Okay, so I'm going to say background, and I'll put the color there. So there's my background color. It shows up, I'll put that in first, and then I'm going to do the URL. And this one, since it's the shorthand, it's not giving me brackets, it's not giving me the pop-up with the possible values, so I'm just going to copy it from up here. So now I've got my background. It's the same image. We're going to use the same image as last time. Then I'm going to say no-repeat. And I'm going to change the positioning to 50 pixels and 50 pixels. And let me save that and refresh, and there it is. So I had to save that and refresh again because the brackets doesn't always preview that correctly. Oops, sorry about that. So that was the shorthand. That can all be on one line. It just doesn't fit on my screen while I'm recording for you guys, so that's why that is kind of wrapping to the next line. So we've got the background color there, we've got the image, we've got the repeat, and we've got the horizontal offset and the vertical offset all under one property, which is called background. So it's over 50 pixels across, that's the first number, and 50 pixels down, that's the second number. yeah, so that's good on that one. Let's save a little time and do the next one, because we're just going to play with the positioning a little bit. So I'm going to copy all that and go to the next line, or down to the next rule. And this one's going to be test 3, so it looks the same so far, right? Because we just pasted everything. Now we don't have to copy all this junk either, or type it again. So this time I'm going to change the positioning on test 3 to some keywords. So I can use pixels, I can use a bunch of different things, but I can also use keywords. I'm going to say bottom right. And what that does is it puts the bottom right of the image in the bottom right of the container that we're in. So that's pretty cool, right? I can obviously say top right. Here's top right. I could say, actually, maybe I should probably, it's working, but I should probably have this in the other orders. I'm going to go right and then top. If I go by the spec, I think I'm supposed to do it that way. It works anyway, but yeah. So the first number should be the same as we did on positioning before. The first number should be, or the first keyword should be the left and right position, and the second one should be the vertical position. So if you want to do center, you can center it too. So I could say center, if I could spell it. There's center top. I can go center center, which sounds weird, but there's center center. So there's lots of different, lots of different combinations of those you can use. I'm going to go back to right and bottom. So now it sits down in the bottom right of my box. So that is a second way to position stuff. We've done pixels and we've done some keywords. Let's copy and paste that again. Now we're making some time, huh? Let's go test 4. This one, instead of saying keywords or pixels, we're going to do percent. And this one's a little bit weird. So I'm going to do, let's do 75% and 75%. What does that do? So what that does is it moves the image 75% over, that's the horizontal, and 75% down, that's the vertical. But not only does it do that, it uses as a reference point a spot in the image that's 75% over in the image and 75% down in the image. What? What does that mean? So basically, if you went like this, here's my image over here, if you can see my cursor. See it? I'm going to go over here 75% and go down 75%. That spot is 75% over in the container and 75% down. Why do they do that? Because if you're using a liquid layout and you want a background image to kind of move with the layout proportionally, I guess, if you want to call it that, then you kind of need to have the image move relative to the positioning as well. I know it's complicated and weird, but don't think that it's not 75% over, right? Because here's, if it was 75% over, then that box would be way over here. And it would start like right there and be off the bottom of the screen. But it's actually counting over in the image and down in the image as well. So if I do, here's another good way to kind of see it. If I do 50-50, if I can type 50. If I do 50% over and 50% down, it's centered. It's not like starting right here and going that way. It's going 50% over in the image and 50% down. It's putting that position 50% over in the container and 50% down in the container. So it centers it. So that's kind of another way to see that. It helps to see it a little bit that way maybe. I'm going to go back to 75 by 75 so you can see that. All right, so that is using percentages to position the image. All right, so the next one, let's go ahead and copy that and paste. And let's go test 5. We're on the 5th box out of 8. We're half done, I guess. We're more than half done. So this is the same height and width, I think, on this one. Actually, no, let's go 300. We're going to go 300 pixels in height, and the width is going to be 100%. So now our box looks like that. So the height is 300 pixels. We're doing background size. And the width is 100%. So it's 100% of my browser window since there's no other containers on there. All right. So I'm going to leave all that background stuff that we had before. I think the 75 and the no repeat. Yeah, all that. But we're going to go down here and add a new property called background size. Background size. There it is. So I'm going to size it directly. I'm going to say 200 pixels and then a space and 200 pixels. So now you can see that the image is now 200 pixels by 200 pixels. That makes sense, right? The first number is how wide it is. The second is how tall it is. So you have a lot of options in there. Let's say if I change this to 100, now it's 200 by 100. Now, of course, it distorts the image, right? Because it's a square image, but now it's not square because we sized it. And it's also a little bit soft, right? So if I size it up using this method, then it's going to get a little bit soft, meaning kind of blurry, because the browser is resizing the image. So in the code or in the content here, you can see some of the options here. If I blow that up a little, no, that's not going to work better, is it? You can do, I could even say, I could put one number in if I want. Let's say if I put 200, now it's 200 by 200, it just doubles. It's going 200 pixels horizontal and vertical, so that's another possibility. I'm going to put it back to 200 by specifics there. So it's 200 by 200. You can size it by percentages. There's also a couple of different keywords. So one is called contain. It scales the background while preserving the original proportions. What does that mean? So let's change this to a keyword called contain. So what it does is it scales the image up so until it hits the edge of the container it's in, but it doesn't change the shape. So it's still a square, but it's as big as it can get until it hits the edge of that container that we're in, which is test 5. The other option for a keyword is cover. So cover scales the image so that it covers the entire background, but it gets clipped, right? So we can't see the top and the bottom of the image anymore because it's out past the box. So those are the two keywords that you might use probably most, in that case, where it's cover and contain. They're a little bit different. So there's cover, here's contain, right? So contain, think of it, contain as it's contained in the box. Cover means it covers the box. Makes sense, right? Okay, I think that's probably good on that one. Let's go to the next one. So I'm going to copy and paste one more. This one is test 6. This one we're going to say this height and the width are both 300 pixels. So it's 300 by 300 pixels on the size. The background position, let's change this to 25 pixels and 25 pixels. And then we're going to take off the background size for this one. So now it's the normal size. What we're going to do is put 2 images in. So the way you put 2 images in is after this first image, I'm just going to put a comma there, right there. And then I can just copy and paste this whole bit again. Let me take this part here, paste it there. But this time I'll put in, let's say, right bottom. I guess about bottom. And I'm taking off the pixels here and all that stuff. And let's save that and refresh. And we're not getting anything, but I think I can fix this by taking out this background color and then adding it in separately. It's supposed to be last in the list, but it's acting strange. There we go. So what I did was I took out the background color that was at the beginning of my first URL, and I added it as a separate background color property after the background shorthand property, and now we've got both. Wow, that's great, right? All right, so here's what happened. We have a background property and that has this image there, and then we said no repeat, and we positioned it up here 25 pixels over and 25 pixels down. Then we have the same image. It doesn't have to be the same image, could be any image, obviously. But we put the same image again, but this time we put it on the right and the bottom, so it's down there. So you can have as many images as you want inside of a container, and all you do is separate them with the comma. And if you have issues with the background color, like I said, it's supposed to be at the last of the list, and I tried that once and it didn't really work out for me. But it does work if I add it after the fact as a separate CSS property. So I'm going to go with that because it works. All right, so that's that one. Let's go to test number 7. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that one. You know what? I should probably paste. Let's do number 5. I'm going to take number 5 because I don't want 2 images for this one. And I'm going to go down and paste it. And this is going to be test 7. And edit this one a little bit. So it's going to be 300 pixels this time by 300 pixels again. So it looks like that. And then we're going to add some padding here. So I'm going to go padding of big padding. I'm going to say padding of 50 pixels. And then the border I'm going to make really thick, and you'll see why in a minute. So I'm going to say border of 20 pixels and dashed. And then I'm going to use RGBA colors. So if you haven't seen this before, this is another way to specify color, and I'm doing this so that you can see through this border. So you type RGBA, you may have seen this already, but I'm going to type RGBA, and then in here I specify the color using RGB values instead of hex values. So 000 is black, and then the last number I'm going to say 0.5. So what that does is it makes the border semi-transparent. Do we want black? Yeah, sure, we'll do black. Okay. And then, so now we can see through the border a little bit. I'm going to go down to and add background dash image. I'm going to take off some of the shorthand stuff. So background dash image. And let's just take everything off except for that. And then let's go background dash repeat. There's repeat. And we'll say no repeat. And let's take off the background size. All right. So that was a lot of work to get to this point, right? So we've got a height of 300 for this container here. Am I zoomed in here? I guess not. A height of 300 and a width of 300. Padding is 50. So that's creating this space here. Padding again is the space between the content and the border. Our border is way out here. And our border is really thick, so it's 20 pixels and it's dashed. And it's RGBA, it's semi-transparent. Actually, we might not have needed that on this one, but we showed it to you anyway. So that's how to make the border semi-transparent. That's why it's not black. We're looking through it to the white, and it looks gray, actually. Then we have background image, which is just our regular image, and then we said background repeat, no repeat. So what we're going to change is one more property that we haven't seen yet, which is called background origin. Sounds like a Marvel movie about Wolverine or something, but it's not. I'm going to say, let's say border box first. So when I change it, yeah, that was why I redid that. So when I look through, I can see the image there, and I can see through the image. And it is starting now at the edge, outside edge of the border. So background origin says, where are we going to start that image from? We want to start it at the edge of the border, so that's what border box does. Your other options are, let's see if I can change that to content box. So let's go content. So now if I change it to content box, it gets pushed all the way inside the padding, and it starts where the content is. I can also do padding box. There's padding box. So now it starts where the border ends and the padding starts. So you can have it start out here if you say border box. You can have it start here if you say padding box. You can have it start here if you say content box, or content box. So you have all these different possible starting points for your image, which can be important because you can say like, I don't want my image out here, or I do, or I want it to be only down there. It's basically another way to position the image. All right, so let's do the last one. I think I can probably copy and paste this one. I'm going to copy that one, paste it, and this is going to be test 8. And this one is about background clipping. So what does that mean? That means where the image gets cut off. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, I'll leave that 300. That's good. The padding is fine. The border is good. The background image is fine. Background repeat. This time we're going to say repeat so that we see it everywhere. And now we can see the value of our semi-transparent border. So we have this semi-transparent border that's basically 50% opaque. I don't know if I said that right, but it's black, which is 0, 0, 0. The last number is how opaque it is or how transparent. So if I change this to 0.1, now you can barely see it. It's only 10% opaque. If I change it to 0.5, it's half opaque. Opaque is the opposite of transparent. So we're looking through the background image now to the border, if that makes sense. And it's repeating out here, right? So even though it's starting at the padding box, it's starting here, it's still repeating past that. So we can now say where we want that to be clipped. Clipped means hidden. So I'm going to go down to down below here and say background clip. And we have the same options, border box, content box, or padding box. Inherit means inherited from your parents, which would be a container outside this. It doesn't really make sense right here. So I'm going to say border box, and it looks the same because now that means the image is visible. The background image is all the way visible out to the edge, outside edge of the border. If I change this to padding, now the background image is invisible where the border is because it's clipped, it's cut off. If I say, but it didn't move, right? It's still out there. It's still out there, we just can't see it. If I go to content, now it still starts in the same position, which is in the top left of the container, but it's cropped. That's what clipped means, basically cropped so you can't see it. So the image is out here, but we can't see it. It's clipped to the area of the content. There's the content, right? So we can't see it past the edge of the content, but it is out there. I mean, I guess, theoretically, like a ghost of the background image. But that's what background clip means. Background clip means where do you see the image? Do you see it in the all the way out to the border? Do you see it to the padding? Or do you see it to only where the content is? That's different from origin, which means where does the image start from? Does it start in the border? Does it start in the padding? Or does it start from the content? Slight difference, but a little bit different. Okay, so I think that is it. So we covered how to move it around using pixels and percent and keywords. We covered how to size it using values, different values. You could use percentages, you can use pixels, you can use any CSS unit you want. Oh, I forgot to mention a keyword for that also for size is auto. Auto means the actual image size. So if you didn't know what it was, I guess you could put auto there. You can use percentages, you can use contain or cover if you want to use the keywords to change that. You can do multiple background images by using a comma in between them. You can say where the background image starts, out here, right there, or right there. And you can say where it's visible from, out here, from there, or from there. So lots of different options with background images. Hope that wasn't too confusing, but there are a lot of possibilities. But background images are one of the most used things in CSS to sort of decorate a page and make it look how you want it to look. So yeah, go ahead and go forth with the background images. Uh-oh, bonus features. Sorry. So one thing that came up right after I did that video was there is a way to do the background for the the background color for the box with the multiple background images without using background color at the bottom. So that was test 6. So if you go to test 6 and then we put in this background dash color at the end, so we would see this background gray color, but we could have just taken that off. And then you have to, if you're going to use a background color with the multiple background images, you just put it before the last image. So I'm going to go up here I think that's the last image, yeah, there. So if I add the pound CCC right before the last image that we had in the lower right, the background color comes back. So when we copy and paste, it starts up here, right? It's first, but it has to be on the last image for that to work. Okay, so I think that's good and clean now. So yeah, again, go forth and use background images.